Have you ever thought about how your daily routine, like just going about your day, could actually help you learn English?
Wow, that's an
Thanks.
interesting. Yeah, we're going to deep dive into
That's so
this
cool.
episode called "What's Your Daily Routine?" Let's talk habits, hacks, and fluency.
Okay.
It's from a show called Routine Revelations: Mastering English Through Daily Habits, and it's all about like using your routine to boost your English skills.
I mean, everyone has a routine, right? So I'm curious to hear how they connect that to language learning.
Yeah, so the host of the episode makes this really cool point that like routines are actually packed with chances to practice English grammar.
Mm.
And you don't even realize that you're doing it.
Give me an example. I'm not sure I
Yeah.
follow.
So like, okay, think about your morning routine.
Okay.
You know when you're like making coffee,
Yeah.
you're using present continuous tense like I am making coffee.
Right.
But but when you're describing your routine like every day, you're like, I usually make coffee at 7 a.m.
Oh, I see.
This is present simple. So you're practicing without even thinking about it.
Exactly. And the episode actually breaks down the host's entire routine, like step by step.
Oh, wow.
So they use phrases like, wake up, brush my teeth, work out,
Okay.
get dressed, check emails, all that stuff, wrap up work, go to sleep.
It's funny because those seem like such basic phrases,
Right.
but they're the things we do every single day.
Yeah, and when you use those consistently, you're building that foundation for fluency.
Makes sense.
And the host even like encourages listeners to say those phrases out loud.
Oh, so you get used to
Yeah.
pronouncing them.
To get comfortable with the pronunciation.
Smart.
I thought it was really interesting that the podcast also included stories from listeners from all over the world
Oh, cool.
describing their own routines.
I like that because it shows that routines are something we all have in common,
Yeah, nobody.
regardless of
Yeah,
where,
they're from.
yeah, where you
Have a
live.
routine.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's like Maria from Spain. She's a teacher, and she keeps her routine description really simple and effective.
Okay.
And then there's Ahmed from Egypt, and his routine, it's like a glimpse into a totally different way of life.
Interesting.
But he's still using those same core English phrases.
So it shows how routines can connect us even if our lives are very different.
Exactly.
Mm.
And the episode ends by encouraging listeners to share their own routines online using the hashtag #MyEnglishRoutine.
Putting yourself out there like that can be kind of scary for some people.
Totally.
Yeah.
But the idea is like you're crowdsourcing your learning. You get feedback, motivation, maybe even connect with other English learners.
It's like having a built-in support system.
Yeah. And when you have to explain something to someone else, it forces you to think about it clearly and use the right words.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful.
Okay, so we've seen how routines can be this like secret weapon for learning English.
Right. It's not just about textbooks and grammar rules.
Yeah. So the podcast also gives 3 specific tips for making the most of your routine for language learning.
Okay, I'm ready to hear these tips.
Are you ready to unpack them?
Let's do it.
All right. So tip number 1 is start small.
Start small.
Yeah, it sounds simple, but I think a lot of people try to do too much too soon.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then they get overwhelmed and give up.
Right. So the key is to build sustainable habits.
Exactly. And the podcast suggests like adding just one new English-related activity to your routine.
Okay, so like instead of trying to learn 100 new words every day,
Right. Or, spending hours watching English movies.
you could just pick one small thing to focus on.
Yeah. So what would that look like in practice?
Well, it could be something as simple as like reading a short English article every morning
Oh, that's a good idea.
or listening to an English podcast while you're commuting.
I actually tried listening to a news podcast in English during my commute last week.
Oh, cool. How did you like it?
It was good. I mean, it's like passive learning, You're just kind of absorbing the language while you're doing something else.
Exactly. It's about making English a natural part of your day.
Okay, so that's tip number 1, start small.
Makes sense.
Tip number 2 is use English in your routine.
Okay, this one sounds interesting.
So the podcast suggests doing things like labeling items around your house in English.
Like putting a sticky note that says refrigerator on your fridge.
Yeah, exactly. Or on your chair.
Does that really work?
Well, I think it depends on the person.
Yeah.
Some people are more visual learners. So seeing the words might help them remember.
Right, but for others it might not be as effective.
Yeah, the key is to find what works for you.
They also suggest thinking in English.
Ooh, that's tough.
It is, but it's a really good way to improve your fluency.
I can imagine.
Like try narrating your day in your head as you're going about your routine.
So like, okay, got to grab the keys, feed the cat, head out the door.
Exactly. And if you're feeling brave, you can even try describing your actions out loud in English.
Like talk to myself in English. I think my family would think I'm crazy.
Uh-huh. Well, maybe start with just whispering to yourself.
I did try describing my actions out loud in English yesterday.
Oh, really? How did it go?
Well, my cat gave me the weirdest look.
Haha. Pets can be so judgmental.
I know, right? But hey, at least I'm practicing.
That's the spirit. It's all about breaking down those barriers and making English a natural part of your life.
Okay, so tip number 3 is share your routine.
Share your routine.
Yeah, and I really like this one because it adds a social element to language learning.
Okay, so how do you share your routine?
Well, the podcast suggests posting about it on social media using the hashtag #MyEnglishRoutine.
Oh, I see. That's a good way to connect with other learners.
Yeah, you can get feedback, motivation,
Mm-hmm.
maybe even find a study buddy.
And it doesn't have to be limited to social media, right?
Exactly. You could share your routine with a language partner,
Mm.
a tutor, or even just a friend who speaks English.
It's all about putting yourself out there and practicing.
Exactly. So we've got these 3 great tips. Start small, use English in your routine, and share your routine.
I like it simple and actionable.
Yeah. And if you can incorporate even just one of these tips into your daily life,
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll start to see a real difference in your English skills. You know, at the end of the episode, the host leaves us with this thought-provoking question.
Mm.
They ask, like, what's one small change
Oh.
you can make in your routine, like starting today, to use more English?
I like that.
Yeah, it's a good way to, like, put these ideas into action.
It's like a call to action.
Right.
Instead of just listening.
Yeah, what if, like, I
Yeah.
started listening to an English news podcast
Mm,
while I'm making breakfast?
that's a good one. Or maybe you could challenge yourself to think in English. Ooh. While you're getting ready for work.
Yeah, those are great examples.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is there's no, like, right or wrong answer.
Right. It's about finding what works for your own routine.
Exactly. And I think even if it's just like 5 minutes a day, those small efforts, they can really add up over time.
Consistency is key.
Yeah, make it a habit, something you do automatically without even thinking about it.
Exactly like brushing your teeth, but for English.
Love that.
Mhm.
So basically what we've learned is that our daily routines, you know, the things we do every day without even thinking, can actually be a really powerful tool for learning English.
It's like this hidden opportunity that's right there in front of us.
Yeah, and by being more mindful of the language we use in our daily lives
Yeah.
and making a few small changes, we can turn our routines into these chances to improve our English skills.
And it doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. Just find those little moments throughout the day to engage with the language, whether it's listening, speaking, reading, or even just thinking in English.
Those little moments add up.
They do.
Yeah.
And remember, consistency is key. Those small daily efforts, they'll pay off in the long run.
Absolutely well said.
So that's our deep dive into the connection between daily routines and learning English. We hope you found it helpful and maybe even a little inspiring.
And remember, think about that question. What small change can you make to your routine today to boost your English?
Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep those routines rolling and those English skills growing.